Art journal entry week 3. Let's sum it up. Okay, so I think last week was kind of successful with doing this free flow kind of recording as I'm watching the video. So I'm going to do a mix this week of reading some of my journal entries that I wrote throughout the week and making commentary just as I'm going through the video and watching it. So I started the week just kind of straightening up my studio and organizing things a little bit. I work a lot better when things are just kind of put in their place. I try to give everything a place to live in my home so that I just know where things are. As you can see, I do create a space for my dog. My dog does sleep with me through most of the day. She's sleeping in my studio most of the day that I'm in here, and she does have her own couch. She actually has multiple couches throughout her house. If you're a dog person, you might belong here. This might be a good place for you. So, anyway, the week before I had worked on quite a few projects, so I'm just kind of getting ready for my week right now. In this week's daily practice, I started working on a shading exercise from the book that I've been going through. I use multiple mediums to practice shading, including the graphite, acrylic paint, and ink. I kind of use the ink. I actually didn't completely finish the practice that I had set out to do in the beginning of the week. I ended up only having 3 days to do my 30-minute practice in the morning this week. There was just a lot of life stuff that came up. So let's get into it. If week 2 was the high of getting past my first big obstacle, week 3 is the crash. I know in the spiral of building new habits and learning more things, I'm further than before. It just doesn't feel like it as I pass the same scenery. Having troubles with technology again, as I dealt with computer crashes and software issues, was a difficult pill to swallow at the time. Taking a break over the weekend, I am coming back with fresher eyes though, and I am grateful to have passed another layer in the spiral. Have you heard of the knowledge spiral theory? It is an idea introduced by Nonaka and Kachak. Obtaining knowledge is a process that is conducted in a spiral motion. We move through 4 sections on obtaining knowledge: internalization, socialization, externalization, and combination. As we spiral through the different sections of obtaining knowledge, we often feel as if we are repeating the same process. However, every time we pass through another section, we obtain a deeper and more enriched level of understanding of the thing we are trying to learn. It can be frustrating to pass over the same troubles again and again, like walking on a treadmill instead of going on a hike. Even after all the work we put in, it feels like we are just looking at the same old spot. However, behind the scenes, we are gaining the ability to hike further. I believe this is why a lot of people say the hardest part is showing up. When we look at only the moment in time, it feels daunting to spend 30 minutes looking at the same old gym floor, or to face the same problem we had 2 weeks ago and for the third time. Sometimes it's hard to show up because we know just how hard that moment in time will be. Like shading, when we only look at black and white, I am here, and 30 minutes will not get me there. We don't see the full picture. 30 minutes one time will not get you there. Only when you add all the grays do you start to see the whole picture. 10 minutes on a bad day, 30 minutes on a regular basis, a hike when it's possible, showing up even when it feels like the same daunting task, coming back to it when you missed a day or 2 or 3, staying on the spiral. Even when you have passed this phase 100 times, suddenly, all at once and through every slow piece, you start to see the depths of what is possible. Something that I did try to practice this week was changing my camera angle a little bit. I've been mainly sticking with the camera angle that I know mostly works or works well enough in recent weeks, and I'm trying to branch out from that a little bit. So I don't even know if you can really tell in this shot, but this is a slightly different camera angle than what I was using previously in some of my other videos. And I'm honestly not really sure how I feel about this angle. I kind of feel like I'm tilted upside down as I'm looking at it. So I don't think that this is going to be a very common angle that I'm going to use in my work. You know the tired sensation that washes over you after a stressful situation, when everything is safe and calm? Your body senses the end and regulates, needing rest after being so willing to jump to protection or action. That's where this week has left me, for so many more reasons than just showing up here. Many good, some neutral. This week was just kind of a week that takes it out of you. It's amazing, even after 100 years of having a society that takes away much of the immediate danger out of living, our brains still see stress as a means for survival, never just a busy or hectic week. Our lizard brain doesn't know the difference between being lost in the jungle, unsure if we will survive, and working hard to achieve our goals. We still have to cater to this part of our brain. Remind ourselves from time to time we are safe, and take the time to move the stress we felt through our bodies to end the cycle. And after that, let it go, reset, and move forward. It was definitely a learning experience to use the acrylics in this way. I had to play quite a bit with how much water to add, how thin I wanted the paint, which angle to come at the black or the white with the brush so that things didn't like smudge together. And this process was definitely longer than shading with the graphite as well. But in this third square, I started to feel like I was getting a little bit more of an understanding of how the colors blended together, and which way to kind of bring the brush and angle the brush so that I was getting the right transition from black to white. At this point in practicing with the paints, I almost made a pretty big mistake and smudged my paints outside of the line. I avoided it. I did not make that mistake, but I very quickly realized after that that I really needed to have some edging around the paint to help contain any mistakes. And I definitely think that things started to look a little bit cleaner once I added that as well. I wish now that I had started the edging in the beginning with the graphite as well. Taping my edges is a practice that I am trying to get back into the habit of. It really helps to create just a more clean look. And that's something that I'm starting to try to incorporate more with my art, even when I'm just practicing, because honestly, you never know when something is going to turn into a piece that you want to continue with, or that's just really going in a good direction and you want to save for your portfolio or something like that. So I'm trying to be more careful about creating clean edges. The circle portion of the shading practice was so much more difficult than it seems like it would be with the painting. With the graphite, it was super easy, but with using a paintbrush to try to smooth out the edges, I was getting so frustrated with how much the little hairs on the brush were just kind of like flinging out as I was doing the circle motion. And I think in the future, when I do this type of shading, I'm going to do more of like a dabbing motion with the brush. But I was definitely just trying to like swing it around like you would with a pencil. And yeah, that didn't work very well. This last square in the row was my favorite out of all of the squares that I did. This is when I started to do a little bit of the dabbing motion, which, and unfortunately, I wish that you could see more of the technique that I was using, but this angle was just like a really poor choice on my end. But I started to use a little bit more of a dabbing motion when creating the transitions, the shading, and I think it turned out really well. It was my favorite, and I was really glad that I had the chance to practice this technique, because I think that it will be very useful, especially when I'm doing more like things in the sky. You know, it kind of reminded me of like a star or a moon type of illumination. So I think that will be a very helpful technique to have practiced. As I was setting up to start the next medium and kind of laying out the squares, that's when I realized that I didn't plan out my composition very well. The pattern that I was trying to create ended up not flowing. I wanted to start with like the first square and then have that same pattern repeat in a spiral kind of motion. And I didn't end up doing that because I wasn't paying enough attention in the beginning of how I was laying things out. So that was a good reminder to just really consciously think about your composition and plan it out before you start your project. I was a little disappointed that I didn't have as much time to work with the pins this week, because this dot technique of using the pins was so much fun. I really enjoyed like the different form of transition, just having like less black, but it's not really like a gray or a tone. And I just thought that that was a really cool transition. Also, it created a texture on the paper that was very pleasing. I'm looking forward to the reset and the forward motion as I enter a new week. This last week was hard, but for all the right reasons. I'm setting a foundation for myself that will last a very long time, and that is worth it. I have big ideas just on the horizon and another level in the spiral to achieve. Thanks for being here with me. Until next time.